Good evening, one and all. Good evening, good evening. Let's make some magic happen for the people of Pontiac. This meeting of your Pontiac City Council is called to order. We begin now with the invocation and give the floor to Councilman Parker.
Thank you, Brother President. Good afternoon, everybody. I introduce you to Rabbi Matthew Bauer of the Shur Tikva congregation. He will be doing our invocation this evening. And I hope I pronounced that right.
You want to hit the microphone button on the bottom right if you see it at the base.
Black button on the
Got a picture of a person on it.
Yeah.
Looking much lower. Thank you. Hashem, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, I call upon your favor not by my merit, but for the merit of my ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. On behalf of all that have gathered here today, I pray for the agenda set before them. I pray for the wisdom and patience in this assembly. We give thanks for the many blessings that you poured into our lives and into the city on a daily basis. We give thanks for the gift of life, for love, sustenance, and fellowship. We give thanks for the ability to fulfill callings and the ability to be involved in useful work, and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. We give thanks for the freedom to embrace you in all of the varied ways that we do, and we give thanks for your boundless and gracious nature. May we have harmony in this proceedings today. May we have a nefesh of openness and cooperation. When confronted with conflicting interests and differences of opinions, may we have a confidence yet be humble. May we be engaged in a healthy and productive dialogue. Let us not be blind to the needs of the impoverished in our community and the needs of the community as a whole. Let us not be overwhelmed by the challenges we must confront, and let us not be apathetic to the violence in our nation and in the world. May we always seek ways to mitigate suffering at every turn. In scriptures, you remind us to not place stumbling blocks before the blind and to use fair weights and measures in our commerce. You ask us to make systems of justice and be righteous in our governance. May we ascend to the ethical tenets that you have gifted us and emulate your ways. May we walk humbly with you with today and every day with joy. May we bring repair to this world in these troubling times. And let us say, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing as we as a community come together and lift our hearts in prayers to one of our own who is battling mightily for their life, and want to give the floor to Councilwoman Rutherford if she's willing to reflect on somebody that she knows well and a resident of the city of Pontiac who's in very dire health situation. Microphone.
Tonight I asked us as a community to pray for my friend, Mr. Darwin Benson. He's also been the Dean of Students at PAE. He's an educator. He's a father of 4. He's Southside strong, born and raised in the city of Pontiac. He's fighting for his life right now. He suffered a stroke and had an aneurysm, so I'm asking us as a community to pray for him because what he does and what he has done has affected us all in our community. So I'm asking that y'all pray for him, please. Thank you.
Please join us for a moment of silence as a community. Thank you very much. You may be seated. Roll call, Clerk Doyle.
Carrington.
Present.
Goodman.
Here.
James.
Here.
McGinnis.
Present.
Nicholson.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
Rutherford.
Present.
Mr. President, you have quorum.
Quorum being established, all members are present and voting. Is there a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Goodman, seconded by Councilman Nicholson to approve this evening's agenda. That motion now before us. We turn to amendments. Councilman Goodman, would you like to make an amendment?
Yes, I'd like to make an amendment adding a resolution for declaring April 28th as Workers' Memorial Day.
And would you like that to be the new number 3? So City Council resolution being the new number 3 and the other items to go down below it.
Thank you.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Goodman, seconded by Councilman Nicholson, that we add a resolution declaring April 28th as Workers' Memorial Day in Pontiac, and that would be the new item number 3 on the agenda. Any discussion on that amendment? Hearing no discussion, roll call and adoption of that amendment, adding the resolution. Clerk Doyle.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Carrington.
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The amendment is adopted, and so now we're at the main motion, the agenda as amended. Are there any other amendments? Any other clarifications? Any other discussion? Hearing no further discussion, roll call and adoption of the agenda as amended. Clerk Doyle.
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford. 7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The agenda is adopted. Is there a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda?
So move.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Parker, seconded by Pro Tem Carrington. This week's consent agenda has last week, April 11th, regular city council meeting minutes. Roll call, Clerk Doyle.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The consent agenda is adopted. We're at our special presentation for the evening. $1.25 million has been awarded to the city of Pontiac by the Southeastern Michigan Council of Governments, and that's for a street lamp replacement grant. We give the floor to the mayor and administration for this very welcome, deputy mayor and administration for this very welcome news. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Council President. As you can see, we do have our grants director here, and she has wonderful news to share with us.
Good evening, Council. We are here to present a short presentation on the most recent grant award of $1,250,000 from the SEMCOG Carbon Reduction Program. The city match that's required for this total award is $312,500 with a total project cost of $1,562,500. The program is a federal aid program related to surface transportation that funds projects to reduce carbon dioxide emissions from transportation-related sources and activities. This program is a little bit different than how we would traditionally bring resolutions before council to accept grant awards. This is a program that actually moves through MDOT, meaning that we will program this actual award through the Michigan Department of Transportation, through their JobNet system, and then we will obligate those funds, and MDOT will actually let the project out to MDOT, which is why we don't have a formal resolution before you. So we wanted to bring this here to have conversation about it in an open forum, but a resolution wasn't really the appropriate application of that. So the technical narrative related to this grant award was provided by HRC, John Balant, and the application was submitted by Mike Martin from the grants team, so he is here to talk through the specifics of the grant award.
Like Alex said, the City of Pontiac has been awarded $1,250,000 to replace existing bulbs currently used in the street lamps throughout the City of Pontiac with LED bulbs in order to reduce carbon emissions. There are currently 1,478 street lights in the City of Pontiac that'll be replaced with LED lights. And this was found using a carbon dioxide calculator provided by SEMCOG, where the existing lamps were able to be plugged into it so that we could determine the LED equivalents that would replace them. The funds awarded through this program will replace existing non-LED streetlights with LED lights that will result in a significant energy savings, estimated to be 2,280 kilowatt hours per year, which is approximately a 35% reduction in energy usage. And then just to give you an idea of what a kilowatt hour is, a kilowatt hour is a composite unit of energy that's equivalent to 1 kilowatt sustained for 1 hour. This is equal to the amount of energy that a 1,000 watt appliance would use if operated consistently for an hour. And then this chart just illustrates the number of streetlights. Down at the bottom, you can see 1,478 there are currently, and that those would be replaced with the energy savings of the 2,280 kilowatt hours per year. The replacement of these existing lamps currently used in Pontiac streetlights will result in a savings for the city. In addition to the 35% reduction in energy usage, LED lamps last several times longer than halogen lamps, significantly reducing the number of lamps that will need to be changed in the future. And then using LED streetlights will reduce the carbon footprint of the city of Pontiac.
You weren't kidding. That's brief but succinct. Thank you very much for that. Questions and discussion from city council members? Councilman Goodman, followed by Councilman Nicholson.
As a person who cares about the environment, who cares about saving money, both of these things are very good when it comes to having this discussion. So to make it very quick and succinct, thank you. Thank you for doing work for a thing that I think many of us believe in, at least those of us who believe in the reality of climate change. So thank you.
Our pleasure.
Councilman Nicholson.
The lumens on these bulbs are better, worse, equivalent as far as lighting, the amount of light that they produce?
That was a question that we did have. Someone else posed a similar question in conversation. We did ask John Balin to provide us with a description of what that would be like. Unfortunately, he's out with his robotics team, and he was not able to respond, but we'll reply to you in writing.
Yeah, it does seem that if they're equivalent to what we've been changing things out for, it does seem like they're quite a bit brighter. So that's also a nice advantage.
Yeah, on a related note, I can think of the Huron corridor. It has a lot of those sodium lights still, and it has a bit of a dated appearance at night that, one, we want to make sure that all street lights are in place, that they're still standing, but two, that they're all lit. And then three, this allows us to take it to the next level, that they're not only standing and lit, but they're also providing a very beautiful aesthetic appearance to the corridors in our communities as well as our neighborhoods. Will this be primarily impacting major thoroughfares, neighborhood streets, or all of the above?
All of the above.
Great. And we already have in our budget for this fiscal year, in terms of replacement of when streetlights are hit or lost or otherwise destroyed or are no longer functioning, so that will continue. When would we see the implementation of this? So we're talking about next fiscal year or over the course of 2 fiscal years?
Right, so this can be done in a couple of ways. The project doesn't need to be completed in the year that the funds are obligated, but they need to be obligated in the year that it's included in the transportation improvement plan. So this is a little bit of jargon. Basically what that means is we must obligate the funds according to, through MDOT, but the actual time that they're awarded are for fiscal year 2024, meaning that we can take care of the project between October 23 and September of 24. This is a long answer to your question.
Thank you. Councilman Parker.
I yield. You've already asked my question.
Okay. Sorry to do that, but I would like to give you a point of privilege. We have some VIP Parkers that have walked in. Can you let the let the good people know about the Parkers in the joint?
Thank you, sir.
Welcome. Any further discussion on this special presentation? Thank you very much to Grants and Philanthropy to your work pursuing these funds. I think it should be no surprise to everyone that by bringing in new grant funding, that allows the budget to thrive and function well across the board. That means that this is over $1 million that we aren't otherwise using taxpayer dollars for to update, modernize, or replace light bulbs for our streetlights in our city. All right, we are now at recognition of elected officials. Are there any elected officials currently serving our city that wish to have the floor? Seeing none, we are now at agenda address. Pro Tem Carrington, any requests?
Yes, thank you, President McGinnis. Dr. Deidre Waterman, what item, agenda item? Okay, you had the floor.
I really came to give good news. It's public comment, but since I was here and I saw that you had ARP item on the agenda again, I can't help but come and push ARP funding, and so I decided to add that to my comments during agenda address. The ARP item that you have on is the budget appropriation for the street sweepers, which is the first money that actually will be put in use from ARP. But you will have another chance to really move that process along so we can get money in the hands of citizens and businesses. And that's really where I had intended a lot of that to go, $37 million. And I get questions asked me all the time from people who want to get their house painted, want to get their driveways fixed, and I'm saying, where is the money that you said from the ARP? So this is budget season now coming up. In 12 days, administration is responsible for getting the mayor's balanced budget to you, council people, and then you will go through the process of deciding the budget for the next year, and hopefully you will use that process to see if we can't get that ARP money into the use of the citizens and businesses who could use it sooner than had been planned. So that's all I wanted to say about ARP, and I want to continue to speak about that and the opportunity for $37 million to really bring transformation to the city of Pontiac. And I hope you will continue to work avidly to make sure that every penny of that gets used appropriately.
Thank you, Dr. Waterman. Ms. Darlene Clark, what item?
Item number of the zoning is listed as number 2.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Darlene Clark, speaking as a resident. The old saying, what is not broke, don't fix it. There's so many issues in the city of Pontiac that time has allowed to sneak into our city, from homes being repaired to residents who's trying to repair their homes. You have on your agenda for pods for the pods to stay on a person's premises for 30 days. In the code enforcement now, it's 180 days. It's not broke. If you're trying to stop people from keeping the pods in their yard and keeping track on what they're doing, it takes a while for improvements to do. To lay cement, it takes up to 6 weeks, but it has to take a reservation a year ahead of time, or even 2 years for someone to come to your home. To build a garage, it takes up to 2 years to get a contractor to come in to City of Pontiac to want to do anything. And because of the cost of material and the cost of labor, it's hard to find someone to meet code expectation with the training and the knowledge to come here to get it done. Putting 30 days on to say that that's all you can have a pod in your driveway is not realistic. It's far from it. Once cement is laid, it takes up to 6 weeks just to let it dry completely before anybody wants to build on it. And I'm not just talking about my property. I'm actually talking about a lot of residents who's trying to improve and get help from people to come in here to do it. Labor do kind of say, well, I can't come today because they get setbacks. And when they get setback, that means you have it. A lot of labor do not want to work in a person's home, may it be small or big, without clearing out certain space for liability reasons. So before you vote on the pod to stay just 30 days, it's not broke. You have 160 days.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Mr. Chuck Johnson, what item? President McGinnis, that concludes our agenda address.
All right. We are at number 2 on this evening's agenda, zoning text amendment regarding multiple updates. This is our first reading. Any changes to our ordinances, including zoning map amendments and zoning text amendments, require 2 readings. So this will not be the final outcome tonight. There will at least be a second reading at next week's city council meeting. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution for the first reading for this zoning text amendment?
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Rutherford, seconded by Councilman Goodman. So now that's before us. What we're doing is that first reading, the first crack at the community, learning more about what is proposed.
Council President, can I ask for just a moment to get some technical issues resolved here? Thank you.
Without objection, let's move to place on the table the motion that is currently before us, and then we'll pull it from the table when it's ready. Sound good? Is there a motion to place on the table this resolution? Was that moved by Rutherford?
Yes.
Councilman Rutherford moves to place on the table the motion before us, seconded by Goodman. Hearing no discussion, roll call on the current item number 2, just putting it to the side, and we'll pick it back up from the table momentarily. Roll call, Clerk Doyle.
Nicholson?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Rutherford?
Yes.
Carrington?
Yes.
Goodman?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
All right. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution declaring April 28th, 2023 as Workers' Memorial Day in Pontiac?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Goodman, seconded by Councilman Parker. That is now before us on the table. We give the floor to Councilman Goodman, who's pioneering this item to give us the goods.
Yeah, I think it's just rather straightforward for me just to read the resolution because I think it does cover almost every question that you would ask about it. Whereas every year on April 28th, communities and work sites around the world honor friends, family members, and colleagues who have been killed or injured on the job. And whereas in 2021, the Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics estimated that 5,190 workers were killed by traumatic injuries on the job. On average, nearly 100 workers died every week at roughly 14 workplace deaths a day. And whereas in 2021, 140 workers were lost through fatal workplace accidents in Michigan. And whereas it is appropriate to honor the memory of the courageous and dedicated members of Michigan's labor force who have been injured or disabled or have died as a result of workplace accidents. And whereas we remember those who have died in workplace catastrophes, suffered occupational-related diseases, or have been injured due to dangerous conditions. And whereas recognition of the integrity of Michigan's workforce and its achievements on behalf of the economic growth of our state is necessary. And whereas Pontiac City Council wishes to pay tribute to the workers who have died or been injured or disabled in workplace accidents, we honor the contributions of Michigan's workforce and call for increased workplace safety. And whereas the Pontiac City Council renews our efforts to seek stronger workplace safety and health protections, better standards of enforcement, and fair and just compensation, and by rededicating ourselves to improving safety and health in every city workplace. And now, therefore, be it resolved by the Pontiac City Council that the members of this legislative body declare April 28, 2023 as Workers' Memorial Day in Pontiac, Michigan. I think that the data laid out there very much lays out the importance of this resolution, especially as a city that has such a strong labor force, such a strong workers' history. I think this is one of the important things that we can do this month. So,
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion before us? Hearing no further discussion, roll call and adoption of the resolution declaring April 28th, 2023 as Workers' Memorial Day in Pontiac, Michigan. Roll call, Clerk Doyle.
Parker?
yes.
Rutherford?
Yes.
Carrington?
Yes.
Goodman?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Nicholson?
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted. So with that, does the administration feel comfortable proceeding with a motion for us to pull from the table the item that we were? You feel
Yes.
good? Okay. Could I please have a motion
So
to
moved.
take up from the table and now take it back up? Moved by Councilman Rutherford, seconded by Councilman Goodman. This is the zoning text amendment resolution for the first reading. If this passes, we're pulling it from the table, putting it back front and center, and taking up that item now. Hearing no further discussion, roll call, Clerk Doyle on that motion.
Rutherford?
Yes.
Carrington?
Yes.
Goodman?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Nicholson?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
All right, that motion carries. We're at the first reading of the resolution acknowledging the first reading for our zoning text amendments that impacts multiple updates. And we give the floor to the Deputy Mayor of Administration in terms of what is proposed.
Thank you, Council President. So we have 3 different proposed zoning text amendments that we have been working on pretty much for the past year. These are all items that have been brought before us at some point in time, either by representatives from council or by members of the public. And so this is our suggestion to City Council on how to remedy the issues that have been brought before us.
Good evening, Council President, Pro Tem, members of Council. I have a small presentation regarding the text amendments this evening.
You can take it, sure.
There we go. So tonight before you is the consideration for zoning text amendments. And to make it simple, there are 3 buckets of amendments this evening, and I'll be going forward discussing each of those. The first one is accessory structures as container pods. The second one is accessory structures for donation bins. And then the third one is the zoning district MUD standards, which stands for the mixed use zoning district. So this is the timeline of these text amendments. They were introduced to Planning Commission in informational session on March 15th. It went to public hearing at Planning Commission on April 5th. Tonight is the first reading, and then it is tentatively scheduled for April 25th for the second reading. So the first is having to do with containers, or also known as pods. There has been an increase in demand on pods beyond short-term needs in the community, and there's been an issue in recent years with the obliteration of them in some of our neighborhoods. While staff feels like, current staff feels that the current code regulations identify their prohibition, there is a desire to explicitly prohibit these, particularly in residential uses beyond a short-term construction need, less than 30 days. So what staff proposed to Planning Commission was a 30-day limitation of these. And that's pretty common when you have someone that might be moving. It gives enough time to get the contents inside. And this is also a common occurrence if there's potentially a demolition or a restructuring of the property where you're taking stuff for a short-term period of time, up to 30 days inside. Generally, it's in a lot of communities I've worked with, it's not been for construction purposes and for the length of the construction. Next slide. So these are just examples. These are 2 that were provided to me from violations that occurred in the city, just showing one is located in the driveway, one is located in the rear yard. And these were there for longer than 30 days for the storage of materials. So next slide. These amendments require a zoning permit for container pods for up to 30 days, which planning staff can extend to 90 days with an active construction project, and that would be a building permit. And this came from a Planning Commission condition from their public hearing process earlier this month. It does prohibit it to 90 days in a calendar year and establishes penalties and remedies associated with that. Okay. Now, the next item is donation bins. There are many donation bins that exist in the city. Many of the bins, while some have their contents removed, there have been a large number our code enforcement has dealt with that their contents are not removed, which creates eyesore problems with the collection of unused items. And this can also be safety issues and other nuisance-related matters. While an outright ban is not possible, and this comes from case law in the state of Michigan, staff explored restrictions such as side and rear yard placement, proper screening, maintenance requirements, and penalties within our legal authority of police power. So these amendments establish definitions. It requires a building permit for a donation bin or box. It sets the land use regulations, as I mentioned, and the permit needs renewed annually, and the ability for the city to revoke the permit if there are outstanding issues or regular issues with maintenance with that donation bin. So these, there's a lot up there, but I just want to identify a couple of them. If we need to reference this, we can. It's not permitted on these donation bins are not permitted on residential uses. It's not permitted on an unimproved parcel. It must be 1,000 feet from another donation box. However, if there is an existing donation box, you can have a second one right next to it. It must be at least 10 feet from a public or private sidewalk, from a right-of-way, a driveway, a side or rear property line, and it should not interfere with access drives or anything, and it should be placed on a level, hard, paved, dust-free surface. Okay. The last item, and this is a little different than the first two. The first two are a little bit more regulatory. While this is regulatory, it's a little bit more proactive. The current standards, staff worked with the Carlisle Workman firm to identify that they're currently very light in terms of process and responsibility in the standards that are within it. So presently, Stonegate and the M1 Concourse are the only two developments in the city with the MUD zoning classification. Staff tonight is proposing amendments to increase the legislation that provide requirements, standards, and processes for approval that are consistent with other jurisdictions' mixed-use standards and provides clear direction to the applicant and to the city. These standards would establish that a rezoning requires a sketch plan for the entire development. This would need to be approved by City Council along with the development agreement, which City Council would also approve, on the same process. Internal setbacks, dimensional standards, and layout is established during that rezoning process. A site plan would only need to be approved by Planning Commission for each phase, and that allows a developer to potentially work incrementally along that development to ensure that it's built, but it also gives them the protection that they're not required high-level engineering drawings a little too prematurely, before a development is proposed. But these changes set the tone for the process and regulations. And some of these development standards are going to be things like open space, district access, pedestrian pathways and sidewalks, signage, lighting, design and architectural guidelines, dimensional standards, the screening of exterior electrical equipment and transformers, and finally, utilities and communication devices. And this, again, is there's still some vagaries here, but what that does is it allows city staff, Planning Commission, and City Council to work with a potential developer or an applicant for rezoning to address these items and thoroughly run through what is appropriate for that development. So in summary, these zoning text amendments tonight clean up some regulations with container pods and donation bins in the city, and that it establishes some stronger regulations and a more transparent process for the mixed-use zoning district in the city. And then if you go to the next slide, Planning Commission, their recommendation to City Council was approval with the following 3 conditions. Number 1 was to increase the mixed-use standards for open space within a zoned area from 10% to 15%. And the staff proposed 10, they voted to increase it to 15. Number 2 is to increase the mixed-use standards to 150 feet between residential and industrial uses, and this would be between the buildings. Staff's recommendation was 100 feet. They had a motion to increase it to 150 feet. And then the third one, staff, as I mentioned, staff recommended a temporary process for container pods for 30 days. Planning Commission recommended authorizing planning staff to allow for 2 30-day extensions if the property owner has an active building permit for construction, but the pods would not be on a premise for more than 90 days. So that is my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Deputy Mayor Stevens.
Thank you, Council President. Manager Yandrick, for the benefit of those who are not in the planning world day to day, can you explain a little bit more about 2 things? And specifically, both of these things refer to the mixed-use district. The first is, when we say mixed-use district, what does that mean as far as what uses can be done there? And why would we have a mixed-use district versus a residential district or a commercial district or whatever else? And then the second also refers to that particular item. And I know this is proactive, but is there any particular reason why we're being proactive? Are there any, do we expect to be using this MUD in the near future?
Yep. Great questions I'd be happy to answer. So to explain what a mixed-use zoning district is, this allows both residential and commercial properties in here. And the regulations before you do set a minimum and a maximum of residential that is required there. However, City Council you still have flexibility within these regulations to be able to authorize within a rezoning beyond the residential percentages that are there. What a mixed-use district does is it allows an activation between multiple uses, and it's residential and commercial. It's also sometimes residential, commercial, and recreation. And M1 is an example where recreation is really activated there for the uses that they have on that site. It's a little different than a traditional zoning district because it's not one specific zoning district. This is allowing multiple uses there. It's often tied to a development. There's often a lot of public infrastructure that is being built, both in the way of utilities, but also park space. And so this really is a creative district that I would hope in the years to come we would be able to exercise in multiple places. And this is a district that can scale up or scale down to smaller developments as well, the way this is written. The other question that Deputy Mayor Stevens had that I want to address is that, yes, we are working with a developer that is interested in potentially using this rezoning for the Crystal Lake project. And so we have shared this with them, and really it's going to help them out as we work forward this year to see this development seek the approvals that it needs to run in the city. And I feel very confident with my professional experience in working with the Kelly firm and the Carlisle Workman firm that this is important legislation to really strengthen the city's hold on being able to facilitate a process for a development of this nature. So,
Councilman Rutherford.
Thank you. Mr. Mark, I have a question. So if this is to pass, do we already have the billing structure on how we're going to be billing people if they continue to hold their pods or things on their property after 30 to 60 days?
So can you repeat the question? So if an existing one is there, would it be allowed to continue? No, this actually would sunset, and so they would need to be removed.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councilman Nicholson.
With the current MUDs that we have, are they completely grandfathered, those properties, or now that if there's additional development that goes on with the MUDs, does that fall within the new guidelines?
That's a great question. So there are a lot of things that are grandfathered about both of those developments. However, if there are some significant redevelopments that are looking to happen or changes that the city has not seen before, it may need to go back through a rezoning process to establish those standards. So
okay, yeah. The follow-up is, clearly I'm interested in Stonegate because there's significant amounts of parcels that are being developed at one time. Does that sort of potentially trigger this legislation?
So we're working with the Kelly firm, but I think my direct answer is it does not, unless we feel that there's something that is a complete departure from a development side. Because while I think there has been some issues with the construction, there's been some issues with the architecture, by and large, the development that is still coming forward and building today is set, we believe, from those original approvals. Now, with that said, the city is very much still researching. We've had some emails go forward this week. We're still trying to find additional documents to be able to work with the developer to move forward. But by and large, we don't see that these regulations would have a direct impact on the current Stonegate.
Councilman Parker.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Two questions. One, certainly this is a wide range change for how we do things in the city. So how will this be marketed?
For both, if I may ask, for both the donation bins and the pods, or the mixed-use district as well?
All of it.
All of them. I think we would work definitely with the community development department. We're coming up with a bunch of process lists currently that we need to get to administration next week. And so this is something that I think we're going to market at a community development level, these changes. From the mixed-use district standards, that really is up to planning and economic development to work with the development community to share these changes and to let them know it is easier. And this is more transparent to do a process to get development through in the city.
Next question. So with all these changes, how would this be added to the currently being renovated master plan?
So These are immediate items, and so this would not directly affect the master plan. The master plan is a conversation we're going to be going forward with for 6, 9, 12 months, and when that's over, there will be some comprehensive changes to our zoning code, and we'll be working with City Council on those changes. The changes tonight are more for immediate needs. They're not hard changes, particularly the mixed-use district standards do not marginally change the direction of the master plan at all. What this does is it identifies the process. And I think as we move forward, you're gonna be seeing a couple text amendments in the future from planning staff to planning commission and city council. And these are identifying immediate needs that are not directly related to the master plan discussions. So.
One last question, if I can. And so as you outline pods in various locations, certainly understanding the problems that we're having with supply chains and getting equipment and getting things. And I remember you in your presentation, you listed that it can be extended up to 90 days.
Yep.
But is there a process by which it can be extended even longer if needed?
In the current regulations, there is not. And really, it's a policy decision about, are these things acceptable in residential neighborhoods, and if so, for how long? And, staff's take on this was that we did not think there were alternative methods to store things, to house, but these do not fall with our permanent accessory structure standards, and we thought that there were alternative methods. Staff felt that a shorter time period was more appropriate for pods.
Councilwoman James.
Mr. President, I have numerous questions. Is it okay for me to ask more than one? Okay. Yes. Starting with the pods, what is the current standard for being able to keep those on the property? What's our current guideline?
So, and I believe through the building code, this is not the zoning code, there is a process that the city has employed in the past of up to 180 days with a permit. But in the zoning code, there's actually a conflict in the language because I do not believe that our current zoning code allows these structures, period. Okay. And so we're kind of identifying that conflict right now.
Okay, just a comment here with the pods, my understanding when these things were first introduced is that people would have them delivered to their homes for storage purposes. They would pack them, and then that company would come and pick them up and take them to a storage facility. You mentioned that there's been a change in how these are used. Could you explain, because I don't understand. Yeah. My understanding of them is that you pack them, and then the company comes and picks them up.
Yep.
And they don't sit on residential property. So if that has changed, could you explain a little bit of what we're seeing now?
So really, my understanding of how that system works is exactly the same way, that they're being, you need them at the residential property for a few days, you put your stuff in there, and you're right, the company moves them away to either a new house or a new storage location for that time period. Mm-hmm. But we've seen over the last couple of years a large increase in people that have installed these pods without permits or sometimes with permits, and then we've seen a demand of people coming in wanting to keep them. Half of them have been permanent, wanting to do them permanently, and half of them have wanting to do it for an extended period of time, whether it be construction delays or whatnot. So,
okay, all right. The second question is around bins. How did you arrive at this this fee that you're asking? You're wanting to register these bins.
Yep.
Or register the owners.
Yep.
But how did you arrive at this escrow amount? Because it seems a bit excessive to me.
If I may introduce, we did work with the Kelly firm a lot on donation bins, and we have Deja Vasquez here from the Kelly firm. Morgan, who's normally with us, is at a conference this week. But Deja really can describe some background and with some other communities as to where that escrow amount came. So.
Okay.
Good evening. Okay, so the donation bins seem to be a bit of a nuisance sometimes in communities where the items are falling out, they're not coming to pick them up and things like that. So there has actually been a lot of litigation in the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals about these donation bins. So when staff came to us about the donation bins and how to try to regulate them, We cannot ban them because of litigation, pending litigation that has been going on, and the court said that they cannot be banned at all. But the requirements that we are putting in the ordinance follow the regulations that the court wants us to follow. So that's where the numbers came from. That's where the permit guidelines came from and everything like that.
Those numbers came from what?
Sir, the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, there have been pending litigations from people who own these donation bins in other communities who tried to outright ban them. And so the court put a number on there and said the number cannot be excessive, they have to pull a permit and things like that.
Is there a number,
The maximum number, so there's not a set maximum number. As we know, courts, when they rule yay or nay. So there was a case actually in Rochester, where City of Rochester Hills was sued because they put a number of $300. And the court said that that number was excessive. So then they changed the number to 200, and the court said that number is fine.
Well, why are we asking for 500?
The 500 is, the 200 is the annual fee, renewal fee. So it's a 300 fee with a 200 annual renewal fee. So it's not 500 at one time.
Okay, I didn't get that understanding.
Do you want me to pass them out the...
And I believe what is in the legislation is that there'd be a one-time fee up front at $500, and then beyond that would just be an annual fee with the license. So,
but to clarify, if City Council wanted to modify that, that would be an appropriate amendment that could be considered in terms of setting of those fees. Bearing in mind, we wouldn't want to go higher than that because there's already been a roadmap that's not going to be deemed permissible by a pertinent court of law, but that if we want to find something that we view as more realistic or appropriate for zoning and planning purposes in our city, that would be a decision this council could make.
that's correct.
Right, and there's also other requirements that they have to make sure that they're regularly coming to pick up the donation bin, so that clothes are not falling out. They have to keep the donation bin in good condition so it's not falling apart or unsafe and things like that.
Yeah, the other question I have is, I recognize that these are important amendments, so I definitely support the work that you're doing. Are we separating out charitable organizations from profit organizations in this scenario? Because for the most part, I don't know, but you look at these bins around the city, and the assumption is that they are being sponsored by charitable organizations. Is the court differentiating from charitable organizations and other organizations?
So they do have to pull a permit. So so they do have to pull a permit. And when pulling the permit, that is something that staff can do the background check and see what actual organization is trying to get this bin in the city of Pontiac. But actually, in our experience, these bins are usually private owned, and they're not owned by charitable organizations.
Okay.
Pro Tem Carrington.
No, I yield, sir.
Okay. This is something that I find very important in terms of stabilizing our neighborhoods and our commercial corridors. The donation bins have been extremely problematic in the last decade in Pontiac. I want to acknowledge previous city council members. I can remember Councilman Randy Carter speaking about the need for better regulation of these donation bins over the last 12 years. It's something that he brought up repeatedly. And so when I started in office, it's something that I researched, and I'm really grateful to see that this is now before us so we can put more enforcement teeth in there. On the east side, for example, in the parking lot of Family Dollar on Auburn Avenue, there are 2 donation bins. Literally today, this afternoon, I saw it, as well as last night, that there's folks that are saying, oh, there's a donation bin. Clearly it's for charity or it's for a good cause, and they're going to pick it up. So they, sometimes with altruistic motives, sometimes it might be, this is a place where I can get rid of unwanted household goods and not have to pay for the removal, and it accumulates there. And so Family Dollar, it's on their property. In theory, that franchise or the corporation would be following up with, but I mean, they have limited staff that are overstretched. I know that I've personally tried to call over the last 10 years when there's been debris or other lack of maintenance or upkeep on these donation bins, and the number is never answered. The number never is tied to something or a person that will take action. So not only are these donation bins usually for profit, they are placed sometimes without permission on the private property owner. It's plopped in the outlot of a parking lot and it accumulates. Sometimes it might be picked up, sometimes not. But it's not necessarily positively impacting or benefiting our community. So with these regulations or others that we want to consider in the future, then hopefully it can be the best possible scenario, that it isn't blighting our neighborhoods or our commercial corridors, that they're well maintained. They're registered, so we now have a paper trail of if there's an issue, if something's happened, if there's criminal activity that's been tied to these bins, who knows what, that we are able to connect it with the person who can resolve it, who can clean it, who can pick it up, who can replace it if it gets damaged. And it's a problem that does need a solution. I'm grateful that we now have prospective solutions on the table before us. Councilman Nicholson?
The terminology that we're using for the pods, I just want to make sure that we're also going to capture like shipping containers and things like that. So is it short-term portable storage or?
Yeah. Staff had the same question for the legal term. Container pods is acceptable language, and it does give flexibility to include shipping containers. I do want to differentiate, this is not dumpsters. These are specifically container pods. So,
what's the current regulations in the city of Pontiac when it comes to shipping containers? Is it that same sort of purgatory of what might have a building permit out there, but you don't think that there's actual language in
the zoning code for accessory structures identifies that an accessory structure needs to match in compatibility to the principal structure. And really, and that's used in many different ways when it comes to garages and sheds, and making sure that there's oftentimes a pitch roof if the principal house has a pitch roof, making sure there's a proper finish. And that there are some vagaries in the way that's worded, and which is why staff is proposing more specific language with this.
Councilman Rutherford, microphone.
Thank you. And there's also been a huge outcry from the community about these pods as well, correct?
We've had a few individuals that have come to the city in my time at the city, over the last few months, that have expressed their displeasure with not being able to get a zoning permit for a permanent structure or to get it for a longer construction period time.
Is there any way Mr. Jack could get up and answer that question? Because he would know longer because he's been here longer. Thank you.
Are we speaking about the donation bins or the pods?
Just the pods, sir.
Because I have a comment about donation bins as well, if you're interested. No, we get often, I would say weekly, we get calls or complaints about all the pods and storage containers that are becoming permanent fixtures on properties in the residential areas.
And may I yield my time? I want to yield my time to you for the donation bins. What was your comment?
Yeah, so in the municipality that I came from, this was a huge issue, and I would concur with the president. Most of them are for profit. They have charitable pictures on there. You think that they're going to an organization that's going to be free, but most of those items are collected and then they're charged. People have to purchase those items that come out of those collection bins. We actually housed in the municipality that I came from in our city the building that all those collection bins would come to and separate those items, and we did attempt to put a permanent ban on them as well until the litigation started. But very important to regulate that.
Councilwoman James.
Yeah, I would like to ask a question to our planner manager. In regards to the bins, in looking through the information that we had in our packet, I didn't really see anything. I'm kind of wondering, how are we going to handle, I think what you're proposing is good. I do have some concerns about the escrow amount. I think we may be going overboard there. but I think basically the guidelines are good. My question is, how are we going to handle the existing bins that are out there that many of them on property where property that they never got permission? For instance, there are 2 bins right on the corner of Joslyn and Walton Boulevard. It's a party store that used to be there. That party store has gone out of business. The 2 bins are still there. In fact, your guidelines say that those need to be removed. So how are we going to handle, the guidelines are great going forward, but what will be the guideline for dealing with the existing, bins in the city?
I love your question. So, and I have 2 responses. Number 1, we're going to be working actively with all the property owners that are out there. But number 2 is that these rules actually establish ownership of these donation bins on the property owner. And whether we know the property owner or we don't, we have the enforcement powers with these regulations that we'd be able to remove and then charge that back to the property owner. So it falls back on the property owner to ensure that their property is clear of these things unless they're registered.
So the new rules will apply to the current
that is correct.
Supply of these bins in the city.
That is correct.
Okay.
Further discussion on this first reading. Again, we will have a second reading likely at next week's city council meeting, and it can continue if further deliberation or research is needed. Hearing no further discussion, roll call on adoption of the resolution acknowledging the first reading for these amendments.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted. The first reading has been read. All right, is there a motion to adopt the resolution? Is there a second?
Support.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Rutherford and seconded by Councilman Parker to adopt the resolution to approve the proposed budget amendment to establish budget appropriations in the amount of $591,004 to account 285-458-977.010 ARP DPW Street Sweepers. All right, that motion is now before us. Mayor Administration, you are up.
Thank you, President McGinnis. If I could just apologize for being late. I came directly from Lansing, where I was advocating for some appropriations on behalf of the city, including, we hope, the MLK Bridge. So more to come in that regard. But I want to talk about street sweepers, and we're really excited about the opportunity to finally acquire new street sweepers for the city. The city has not had street sweepers of its own in many, many years, largely because of emergency management action. And although we rented street sweepers last year, that is expensive and only allows for the use of street sweepers on short-term bases. And so by owning our own street sweepers, we'll be able to deploy them much more regularly throughout the entirety of the year and in a more cost-effective way. And so this proposal would actually approve the budget amendment to facilitate the purchase of these new street sweepers.
All right, discussion on that motion. Councilman Nicholson.
We were told we would acquire them somewhere on April. Is that still on track to come in within the month, or?
Deputy?
Should be end of this month, the first couple of weeks of May.
Further discussion. It was discussed previously as it relates to budget amendment matters, so it's not the first time that we've had this deliberation. Hearing no further discussion on the motion before us, roll call on adoption of the resolution approving the proposed budget amendment. We're talking about $591,004 for the purchase of street sweepers by the city of Pontiac. Clerk Doyle, roll call.
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford.
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted and the budget is hereby amended. Let our neighborhood streets be better swept. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution to approve the Community
Moved by
Foundation?
Carrington.
Support.
Moved by President Pro Tem Carrington, seconded by Councilman Rutherford to approve the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan grant funded contract with Baker Tilly We give the floor to the mayor and administration for context.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to invite our grants director, Alex Borngesser, to the podium to get into all the details. But Baker Tilly has done work for the city in the past, as many of you on council are aware. And the work they did in the past was largely with our grants department to help shape it into the effective department that it is today. Of course, the key to that has been Director Borngesser's leadership, but Baker Tilly early on helped in a supporting role. And this would provide similar guidance to our code enforcement division to really help make sure that we have proper standard operating procedures in place and that we're ramping up the code enforcement division to be more effective and to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to stamp out blight in the community. Director Borngesser?
Thank you, Mayor. What you have before you is a resolution to authorize the contract to engage with Baker Tilly. Like the mayor mentioned, this is supported with $70,000 in grant funds from the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan. The objective is to create a process improvement plan, standard operating procedures, workflows, training modules, and all the things that you saw with the grants department for the code enforcement division. The agreement was included in your packet and was reviewed by the city's attorneys and is ready upon your authorization for the mayor to execute.
Councilman Nicholson.
Does the grant involve the 50th District Court in any way? Just we've been pretty successful in working back and forth to make sure that what we're submitting is what they're looking for when it flows from the city to the court.
I imagine it will. The objective of the work with Baker Tilly is to really encompass all the activities managed by the Code Enforcement Division, so any engagement with the court would be included in that. Baker Tilly, from my experience, conducts a current state assessment by interviewing staff who are involved in any part of the activities related to the department, and they're very thorough.
Thank you.
Councilwoman James.
I have one question, and that is, this says that this was approved in November of 2021, and my question is, why are we so late in getting this implemented?
Well, several reasons. The first being we needed to acquire the appropriate staff to staff the department to build procedure around. I'll say one piece of wisdom that I gained from my process is when you're building procedure and workflows for imaginary people that don't exist, they really change a lot by the time you get real humans in those positions. And so now that code enforcement is appropriately staffed, they'll be able to build real solutions for real people who do this work every day. Secondly, the person that we worked with at Baker Tilly did take a short leave of absence, and she has returned and prepared this agreement for us.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer. I have a comment, and that is, I would hope that part of what Baker Tilly will be doing, that they could establish for code enforcement what is outside of their scope of work, because they're going to be developing process control plans for them. But in the year that I've served on the council, I think there have been things that have come before me, that have come through me, that I've had to go to code enforcement about, that there are occasionally things that are really outside of their scope of work that should be elevated to either building codes or to engineering. So I would like to see this process really establish what that scope of work looks like for code enforcement, and when, so that there's a clear understanding in the city of what the scope of work is and what it's not.
Noted. Thank you.
Okay.
Further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, speakers list is exhausted. Roll call on the adoption of the resolution to approve the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan grant-funded contract with Baker Tilly. Clerk Doyle.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Carrington.
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted. We are now at public comment. Pro Tem Carrington, are there any requests?
Yes, President McGinnis. Ms. Beatrice Wright?
I shan't start it until the comment be publicly commented.
Thank you. Well, I wanted to come up and continue to reiterate that as we look to the future with our master plan, as we work on it, I would hope that we bring some consensus of agreement with the master plan and the zoning map. The zoning map right now lists every park as R1, residential 1. And I'll repeat what I said before. Why wouldn't the owner of the golf course think that he could sell that property for R1? I know that there was a rationale for why they did that, why the planning and the folks in charge before did that. But I hope that we will bring some consensus of agreement, because the master plan, on the other hand, lists parks as recreational and conservation. So we can pull that together. I hope we can. I hope that we will think big. And big is a little word, but you could turn it into an acronym, maybe beautification, maybe improvement, maybe goal-oriented, that we just don't start doing things and leave it at that. Because MDOT, for instance, is bringing in a new Woodward Avenue, Saginaw Street, for those of us who've been here forever. And I hope that as that gets enlarged, that someone from the appropriate office might work with the businesses along that way to help them improve as well. So that is all I want to say tonight. I want the golf course to continue to be the golf course, and I want every one of you to learn how to play golf. I have a group of golfers right now. I have my golf shoes still on today. I'm teaching golf to a group of seniors at the Bowen Center, and I have a wonderful class. And I just want us to realize that golf is not in some elite sport only for the rich, because Tiger Woods was not rich, but he is now. So with that, I thank you for your time, and have a wonderful evening, Council, Mayor, and Mr. Doyle, and my favorite person, Mr. Stevens.
All right, thank you.
And the citizens of Pontiac.
Dr. Waterman.
I'm happy to come with good news about scholarship awards to amongst a number of talented students. Some of you have been wondering what I've been doing since I've been mayor here, and doing a lot of the things that I was interested in all my adult life, and continuing to do what I was mayor, and now continuing to follow on. But you helped me get this word out about the scholarships offered by the Links Incorporated, an organization, service organization that I know about. And I came to announce the winners of these scholarship awards, so about over $15,000. Many talented students, I think their names deserve recognition. Some of them were college students, first-year college students who are continuing. Asia Talley, who's at Howard University, Kendall Wright, Eastern Michigan University, Nadia Barksdale, Alabama A&M, another HBCU, and Shalom Bird of Oakland University, who I'm known ever since I appointed her a junior marshal for our grand holiday parade, as well as Olivia Brooks, who's at Wayne County Community College. Now, some of them are graduating seniors this year, and I will also announce their awards. Taya Dinkins Goldsmith, who intends to go to Oakland University. Avery Alexander Baptiste, University of Michigan Dearborn. Stella Shania Ojukwu, who is going to Oakland Community College. And Kyera Deasia Mosley, Oakland University. So we're very proud of the talent that's coming up and the young people, the hope they, leaders, future leaders. And it was quite an honor to work with them and to choose and to be able to give them this support to push them on to that next phase of their education. So I just wanted to share that good news in our community with the students who deserve recognition and the families who brought them to this point and the community support they've had. A little more time. We had a short agenda today, and a short agenda, I hope, just for one time, because there's so much still to be done. And one of those things you talked about was the need to do another master plan. I want to talk about that should be a big community conversation and not just Mr. Yardrick sitting in a room doing the master plan himself. When we did it as a big community conversation back in 2014, took a year, with a lot of people involved in that. But there's a lot of things that City Council, I know, still needs to be involved in. I see Mr. Denna walked in, and he is now the developer of the Ottawa Towers. You know, one of the things that we did with the settlement agreement was he had 2 years to come up with a way he was going to do all the improvements for the amphitheater and the Phoenix Center. Not the amphitheater, but for the Phoenix Center garage. So that 2 years was up in January of this year. So some of these things need to be moved along, and I hope Council will have a big agenda, a lot of things to work on to move the city forward.
Time.
Thank you. Pastor Kathy?
Following up with what Mayor Waterman talked about, some of our kids over at the school have really been doing a job. The robotics team placed, the cheerleaders placed, and you know, those are extracurricular. Those kids work hard. They work real hard. I'm an old cheerleading coach. I can tell you how hard they work. And you know, they don't have to be in first place, but if they place 1, 2, or 3, we ought to be congratulating them and telling them how good and how proud we are of them. As an old golfer, I'd like to see the golf course open too. I can't play anymore, but that doesn't mean I don't enjoy it. And I just think it's a tragedy that we don't have that course anymore. And then finally, because I griped about it on Mike, I'd like to thank people on Mike, because I've been griping about a church project that we've had problems with the city and documentation and getting it done. Deputy Mayor Kalfani Stevens took a role in this, and our new planning director, Mark, did a fabulous job. We have gotten it done. We have the necessary documents. Everybody's happy, 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 and we just want to thank the 2 people who worked so hard to get it done. Wasn't an easy job, but it has taken place, and we thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Darlene Clark.
I'm talking again as a resident. First I want to say, to answer to your question, Ms. James, about the pod is rented on a monthly basis. You're right, you can have an option to have it at your home or to have it at storage. So let's clear that part out. It is meant to be temporary. A lot of people had it to be temporarily. Now, as far as a permit, from the past administration, because code enforcement and other administration wasn't as functionable as it is today, a lot of people, including myself, did not know about a permit for a pod. It was never told or knocked on my door from past administration that I needed a permit. And moving into COVID would set back a lot with the cost of wood going up. It also made the quotes that for my family that we got, it increased it 3 times fold. Then it put us on a back burner. So things happen in the process and trying to, as anybody who's building anything. And thanks again, that was my house that he showed with the pod in the driveway. I have 2 driveways. No, I did not build that property. My parents built that property, and I'm very proud of that. It's my job to enhance that property and to update that property. I do follow code. I do believe in code and regulations. I'm a person who stands by that. But when there's a lack of communication with the administration and residents, you have a problem. And that's what's been going on. And you cannot fault people who did not know, including myself. That's my first thing. So yes, it can be transferred. But again, we're getting ready to build a garage. We're going to have another pod there. And we have to have a permit. Will I get one? Yes. But understand this, trying to get permits from the city of Pontiac, Pontiac is the hardest city to get permits for. It's not in a timely fashion. You have to wait on them or you have to stay on top of your game with them. So when a person order a pod today, do they include the fact that it may take up to 30 to 45 days to get a permit done? It took me just to get my property adjacent together, it took me almost 6 months. And that's just talking about it, making plans, trying to get organized, and in the meantime, following my builder's instructions. That's one thing, and I don't want to stay on that. But what I did want to talk about is the affordable living. Rent is high, not because a lot of the landlords choose to pay this. A lot of tenants does not take care of the property. A lot of code enforcement does not keep track of these homes that these people are renting out. And with Section 8 so easily to get onto, it opens up the door for investors to become predators and charge the extensive amount that's really over above than what the property is worth.
That does conclude the time.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Mr. Chuck Johnson. He's the last person.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, those of you here in the audience and those of you at home watching by television. A couple of thoughts come to mind this evening. Number one, the work on Woodward Avenue. Some seem to think that that project was meant purposely to enhance the roadkill activities at the M1 concourse, and I'm hopeful that from your comments, Mayor Grimo, that you didn't really want that activity on Woodward Avenue because of the way it affected the public and the South Side people. We'd like to hear more about your concern as it relates to that. I think that even with the meetings, a lot of folk need to still understand that that project is not, or that work is not being done just to accommodate the roadkill activities that has plagued the South Side of Pontiac for a number of years. Further, as it relates back to the pod conversation, as we look around our city, our Hispanic community is growing leaps and bounds, and the majority of them are masonry or concrete individuals, and they have a lot of scaffolding and trucks, trailers, et cetera, et cetera. And I think there's something that we can do as a city to not only help our Hispanic community with that activity, and that is to take, for an example, the old landfill on Kenneth Road. There's a portion of that land that can be developed proper and cause a monetary gain for the city by developing something there, just even if it's on a temporary basis, to help the individuals who has these tools and stuff to get the blight from the driveways and on the streets of Pontiac. You could probably design something that they could have a space, certain size space that they could pay a fee that would be revenue to the city. I mean, it sounds far-fetched, but it's something that can be a reality. Because if we're going to look at the slum and blight situation, we certainly have to look at heavy equipment that's on the residential properties or in alleys or on the front streets. So, you know, that's just a thought that could happen, and it's a revenue stream that the city could create, a fair revenue stream for the individual that may rent space from that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. President McGinnis, that concludes public comment.
All right, we're at our two discussion items tonight. The first is the citywide cleanup activities underway. You've seen a special presentation on this topic at a previous city council meeting, but we just wanted to give the opportunity for council members to reflect on the progress so far or emphasize items in the coming days. All hands on deck, us as residents, businesses, community advocates, to make sure that we are helping enhance our community, including our public parks. Is there any discussion on this item? Pro Tem Carrington.
Thank you, President McGinnis. I just want to announce a reschedule of the Charlie Harrison Park cleanup, which was scheduled for this Saturday due to inclement weather forecasters, we removed that to April the 29th, the next Saturday, from 10 to 2 p.m. So I just want to make that update.
Okay, so that's Charlie Harrison Park on University in District 6?
Yes.
Instead of April 22nd?
It'll be April 29th.
10 a.m., 2 p.m.?
Yes.
Okay. Councilman Nicholson? Or, excuse me, Goodman?
And then, so for District 3, because of the very cold weather on Monday, we will be doing our cleanup for North Kiwanis Park this coming Thursday in the afternoon. So I will be sure to get that information to the District 3 residents who like to participate.
Councilwoman James?
Yes, the cleanup at Cherrylawn Park that was scheduled for Monday was put off until this coming Monday. So I do have a group of GM employees that will be working in Cherrylawn Park on Monday, April the 24th. And I just want to shout out to the M1 concourse team that came out to Art Dunlap Park this morning at 10 o'clock and just did a bang-up job. And I see one of the community people here today who was also with them. But they did a great job at Art Dunlap Park, and it looks great now. So I want to just encourage all of you that have been working with the cleanup committees that are in place. And Thursday we'll be working with Aaron Perry Park at 10 o'clock. So if anyone is still interested in being involved, you can show up at the Aaron Perry Park on Thursday at 10 o'clock. And also Saturday is going to be our final day of cleanup. We'll be at Bodette Park, and where our party is going to be, our celebration is going to be from 1 to 3 at Bodette Park. So if you're available, stop by and say hi. But it's been a great week, and it's just great to see so many people involved in what we're trying to do.
Councilwoman Rutherford?
She took everything I was going to say. So I do want to thank the other individuals who helped with Montana Park and also M1. It takes a village to change the community, to change a community one step, one moment at a time. So thank you guys for coming out there and helping. And Saturday, as she mentioned, there will be a cleanup in Bodette Park, which is in District 1 and in District 2. So I will be out there in the cold, hopefully not getting my hair messed up, but I'll be out there serving as well. So that's all I got. Absolutely.
Councilman Nicholson.
Just wanted to make sure if people are doing cleanups prior to in Bodette Park that do not try to mess with or take care of the limbs. There are a good a bunch of piles of fallen limbs. The city does have a scheduled chipper and crew to go through and get rid of those. Apart from that, in and around Saturday and the rain, we've got forecasts from Friday to Thursday of thunderstorms and rain. So it really does put a damper on some of our Saturday projects. But the Micah 6 community has organized a very large group of Rochester College students and faculty to come and clean M59 in Huron. As they typically do, there will be a dumpster located at Sprout Fresh Foods. And then the Enterprise Rental Car Internship and Development Program is going to be doing in and around the rain on Saturday Telegraph. So if you see green T-shirts on Telegraph or red T-shirts on Huron, come in, join. We've got plenty of supplies.
Speaking of T-shirts, if you join many of the cleanups happening throughout the city of Pontiac, you'll get a City of Pontiac T-shirt. Yours will likely be blue, and then show that you're a volunteer. So just a little perk for sharing of your time and your labor to help enhance our community. Each of the city's districts, in all corners of our city, there will be complimentary large dumpsters that the administration and council has secured for each of the districts. So it's an opportunity, if there's some larger items when you're cleaning up in your neighborhood, for you to dispose of them. So we can go down here and share where they are. Since I'm talking, I'll share. For District 7, ours is in Murphy Park, the same location where it has been in recent years, but in the parking lot of Murphy Park is where you can find the large dumpster over the Earth Day weekend, which, by the way, this coming weekend is the first of the 3 free landfill days for Pontiac residents. We've announced that before, but I want to emphasize that. So you now know where 7's dumpster is. How about 6?
6 dumpsters one to be at the corner of Linda Vista and Jocelyn, right in front of Mark Twain School. The other dumpster will be at Perry Park in one of the parking lots.
District 5?
District 5 dumpster will be in Galloway Park. And while I'm there, I want to thank Pontiac for volunteering to come and help us clean up Galloway Park. Then because they volunteered, we had to change the time of the cleanup from 10 to 3 to 2:30 to 5 that evening. So please come and join us as we clean up Galloway Park.
And that's Oakland Forward that's joining you?
Yeah.
Okay. District 4, where's the dumpster action?
Dumpster will be behind the Weaver School, there at Chicago and New York Street. It will be located right behind the old Weaver School on the north side.
District 3.
The dumpster for District 3 will be where it was at the last cleanup, which would be on Sarasota Street.
District 2.
At Sprout Fresh Foods on Huron, and then there's another one at Bodette Park.
So that's Huron and Dwight?
Correct.
All right. For District 1.
There are 4. Yes, there's one on Crestwood and Astorwood. There's one in front of 1204 Oakland Street. There's another one in front of 1138 Oak Valley, and the last one is at the Mill Down. So again, there's 4, one in front of Crestwood and Astorwood, 1204 Oakland. That is for everybody. It's just there for a reason. 1138 Oak Valley, and the last one will be in the Mill Down because my district needs it. Thanks.
Mr. President.
Yes, District 4.
Yeah, I just want to say that these will be delivered on Friday, this coming Friday, and they will be picked up on the following Monday. So they're going to be there the weekend, delivered out to the districts on Friday of this week, and they'll be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they'll be picked up on Monday. So you have this coming weekend to get all of your stuff in there. Please don't take stuff to where the dumpsters are and leave it there, because nobody is going to put your stuff in the dumpster. Wait until this Friday, when the dumpsters install, and please put your items inside the dumpster. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rutherford.
Just want to reiterate that the dumpsters are for everyone that's in District 1. It's not just for a household, but it's put in key locations because they were requested, and the last one was paid for out of District 1 funds, so that there are 4 dumpsters within the community so everybody can dump. It's a free-for-all. District 1, that's it.
That's right. Shout out for the district project funding to support the cleanups in your district. It's worth pointing out now, this is a change, but Bodette Park has been invoked a few times in this conversation. Does anyone want to share? There have been gates added at dusk. So does anyone want to emphasize that just so the community doesn't?
Sure. So just so everyone's aware, the previous signs did say that the park closed at dusk. Dusk has been a changing and confusing thing. As it is right now during the summer season, dusk will be 8 p.m. So the Sheriff's Department does come through, make sure that all the cars are out of the park at that point, and then they do lock those 2 gates. They do open them again in the morning. I believe it's at 9 a.m.
It's when the DPW staff comes in. It's sometime between 7 and 9 a.m.
Thank you. Yep, and they have been locked the last 2 nice evenings, and so far nobody's been locked inside, so that's positive.
All right, any other discussion on citywide cleanup activities underway? I mentioned that Murphy Park is where the dumpster will be. Murphy Park's cleanup is scheduled, weather permitting, for this Thursday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then we also have a few community groups that will be doing some follow-up targeted work, including some plantings over the weekend, weather permitting as well. So we're really grateful for the community's collaboration on that. Hearing no further discussion, we move to our final discussion item. A pretty brief matter. It's just want to make sure that the community is aware of what the state requires for dog licensing. So that I get it right, all dogs must be rabies vaccinated and licensed beginning at 4 months of age per the state of Michigan. So that ain't Pontiac trying to put that on you. That's what Michigan says must happen. And Oakland County dog licenses are good for a calendar year, January through December. And want to point out that, for some cities, it's handled internally. For all Pontiac dogs, it's handled at the Oakland County animal facilities. A 1-year license for a spayed or neutered dog is $15. A 3-year license for a spayed or neutered dog is $40. For dogs not spayed or neutered, a 1-year license is $25, and a 3-year license is $70. And so the cost goes up as of June 2nd. So now through June 1st is when the standard fees are, but after June 2nd, a 1-year license goes up to $40 for all dogs. You can purchase these online at oakgov.com/petadoption or at the shelter, the Oakland County Animal, Pet Adoption and Animal Shelter that's in Pontiac in the county complex at their counter from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. You can find out more information at that same website, oakgov.com, which is oakgov.com/petadoption. We just want to make sure that community members know that you'd have to pay a little bit higher after June 1st. So you might want to get it in now to make sure that your dogs are safe and compliant with what the state and the county and, of course, Pontiac as a result of that requires as well. And I made that announcement with the spirit of Miss Sherry Scott, a dear departed resident of District 7 who had wanted you to know that information as well. Any other discussion on that item? All right. Hearing no further discussion on that item, we're at council communications. You can find on the printed agendas updates and announcements from for the community, including job opportunities, resources, upcoming events. Councilwoman Rutherford, you had an announcement for, I believe it was a job fair that isn't printed on the agenda, but folks may want to know about.
Yes, for returning citizens and those who are clearly looking for a job. There is a job fair, Career Pathways, April the 28th from 10 to 2 at a place called the Center for Employment Opportunities. They're located at 46156 Woodward Avenue, Suite 2, that's located in the Lighthouse. It connects with fair chance employers who will hire justice-impacted individuals who have barriers to employment. The number to contact them is area code 947-232-7260. Some of the jobs that will be offered will be from GFL, which is the garbage company. Another person who will be there will be Oakland County. They'll be having hiring on site. Again, that's on April the 28th from 10 to 2 for the Center for Employment Opportunities located at 46156 Woodward Avenue. The phone number once more time is 947-232-7260. Thank you so much.
All right. Mayor Grimel, your communications.
Thank you. I first and foremost want to thank everybody who came out today. I guess to some extent there may have been one or two events yesterday, but especially today, and who plan to come out the rest of this week for the regular annual spring cleanups. I really appreciate everybody who's showing out for this. As I've emphasized before, it's really important that we as residents turn out for these events, both to beautify the neighborhoods, but also to really show that we come together as a community to make a difference, working together, collaborating as Pontiac residents. So I want to thank everybody for that. I also want to thank everyone who came out to my brunch and community conversations event this past Saturday at the Bowen Center. We had over 100 people there, and it was a great opportunity to engage in open dialogue and get a lot of questions answered. We will be having some additional events later on this year. We had, I think, 4 events last year. This was the first event this year, and we'll have some additional events in the months ahead. But I just wanted to thank everyone for coming out to that.
All right, and segue into your closing comments.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Some good meetings in Lansing today as we seek to make sure that Pontiac gets its fair share of state appropriations, which has not historically happened, but we're cautiously optimistic that we'll get some investments from Lansing, some much needed investments from Lansing this year. I also want to congratulate the robotics team from Pontiac High, and their actual name is Robotics Team 51, Wings of Fire. And not only did they finish in second place in the state of Michigan, but they are heading to Houston this weekend to compete in the national tournament. So not only do I want to congratulate them for their very strong showing here in the state, but also wish them luck in the national tournament. And it's really important that we lift up all of our young competitors from Pontiac. We do a lot of celebrating of athletes, as we should, and we'll continue to do that, but we want to lift up all of our successful competitors from Pontiac who really make all of us proud in the city. I also want to reflect, as I have at past meetings, on the Woodward Avenue construction. I know that it is a huge inconvenience to have these southbound lanes closed on Woodward. I know, just as all of us do, because we all drive in the same backed up traffic. As I've said in the past, the sole purpose of that construction project is to make the intersection at South Boulevard and Woodward safer. That intersection has been incredibly dangerous for many, many years. It obviously got worse with the MLK Bridge being down, but it's been dangerous for many years. And the whole point of the construction is to ultimately prohibit traditional left turns and require Michigan left turns, where one uses the boulevards in Woodward Avenue to do left turns. And the whole purpose of Michigan lefts is to make intersections safer. The most serious accidents in any intersection occur when cars turn left in front of oncoming traffic and get hit or T-boned by oncoming traffic. By requiring Michigan lefts and eliminating traditional left turns, that will no longer be an issue. This is not going to construct a roundabout in that intersection. I heard some people ask about that. That is not the case. This is just about requiring Michigan left turns, just as we see at the intersection of Woodward and Square Lake, for example. I also want to emphasize that this is not to make those southbound lanes, and by the way, the whole reason why this construction is needed to allow for Michigan lefts, I probably should explain that, is because the current median that is just north of that intersection of South Boulevard and Woodward, which is to say the median right out in front of Elam Restaurant and Avon Donuts on one side and then M1 Concourse on the other side, it's too narrow of a median to allow for the turnarounds in that median. So the whole purpose of this construction is to widen that median to allow for those Michigan lefts. This is not in any way designed to allow for or make it easier to have the roadkill nights in those southbound lanes. In fact, the reconfiguration of the road will actually make it impossible for roadkill nights to continue in those southbound lanes on Woodward. So the roadkill night simply will not be able to be run in those southbound lanes where it's been run in the past, because the road reconfiguration will no longer allow for it. So far from being done to facilitate it, it'll actually make it impossible for it to occur where it's occurred in the past.
All right. Clerk, anything, Deputy Mayor Stevens? Don't want to leave you out of the fun.
No, I just want to reiterate congratulations to Team 51. For those of you who don't know robotics, the teams are numbered in the order which they came into being, and we are well above 2,000 teams now. So the Pontiac team is one of the first teams and continues to throw up excellence. So thank you.
Thank you. Clerk Doyle, closing comments.
No comments, Mr. President.
All right. Who wants to go first? Who's feeling lucky? Councilman Parker is feeling lucky.
What am I feeling lucky about?
Your closing comments.
Closing comments. Thank you, Brother President. I have a couple of things to share. One, I want to thank Rabbi Matt Bauer for coming this afternoon and praying for us. He's always asked, he's the one who actually asked me when he can come again, so I thank him for coming and sharing with us. I want to remind everybody about the Law and Courts Subcommittee meeting, which takes place Monday the 24th at 4 p.m. in the council chambers. It is a public meeting, so if you have anything you want to learn about law and courts, and we do discuss a lot of things. We do talk about code enforcement, what used to be Black Court, but now we talk about the code enforcement issues. We have been playing around with some of the we've been playing around with some of the housing and homelessness issues, and at this meeting we should have the director of the county's Poverty and Homelessness Subcommittee coming to share with us. We usually have the 50th Court District's Chief Judge to come, and she shares. So if you want to know what's going on, please come. It's always the fourth Monday of every month at 4 p.m. in Council Legislative Chamber. Want to remind everybody that May 4th is National Day of Prayer, and the Oakland County Ministerial Fellowship is putting together an awesome program for you for the National Day of Prayer. It will be held at the County Commissioners' Chambers on May 4th, beginning at 5 p.m. Well, we said 5 so they can get everybody there and get them together. So you can get there at 6. You might miss a whole bunch of us. We'll get there at 5 and be early, because it should be standing room only. I want to thank all of those who attended our last District 5 CDC meeting. We had a surprise guest. Congressman Haley Stevens showed up and talked with us. As always, we had our mayor there who shared with us and gave us some updates on city projects and activities. And remind everybody that this District 5 CDC always meets the second Thursday of every month at 6 p.m. in the City Hall's Lions Den. We talked about the Galloway Park cleanup, which is going to take place this Thursday, April 20th, from 2:30 to 5 p.m. Please join us there. Snacks will be provided. Want to remind everybody that the Harrington Hills Association will be having the Harrington Hills Association Residents Association meeting will be Thursday, April 20th at the Harrington Hill Elementary School Library at 6:30 p.m. For all of those who stay in Harrington Hill, please come out and share. I believe Ms. Jane G. Matthews has an awesome program planned for those activities. Again, it's April 20th at the Harrington Elementary School Library, 6:30 p.m. I want to just say thank you to Deputy Stevens for his recovery. I know he was feeling under the weather and didn't attend one of our meetings. Glad to see him here. Seeing his smiling face is always good to see. We want to remind everybody that for those of you who are tired and feeling downtrodden and need some energizing, you can come to the New Springfield Missionary Baptist Church for their spring revival, April 19th through the 21st, starting promptly at 6:30 p.m. Look forward to seeing some of you there. You can see the other things that I do in regards to this city. For those of you who come on Tuesday night and see what I do, you can come now Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and see what I do for my other job. That's New Springfield Missionary Baptist Church. We're having our spring revival from 6:30 until the Lord tells us to leave. I want to thank you very much for coming. And with that, and if you can't make it then, we're also having our Friends and Family Day this Sunday. We start at 9:30. Some of y'all don't like to get up that early, but if you get there by 11, Maryland, you get there by 11, we'll still be there. But we're looking forward to having a fun time and celebrating with our friends and family. And if you stay later, after we get done, we're probably going to have a little short snack and meal for those who wish to stay. Let me see if that out, National Day of Play. And I just want to talk to you, remind the mayor and stuff that one of the things that I know one of our members have been addressing now for a couple of meetings is the potholes, I believe, on Colonial Meadows Lane. Is that the street? Colonial Meadows Lane? Colony Lane. Well, I know it's right next to Colonial Meadows. And there's about 5 of them that sits across, like they're standing in soldiers right across that whole street that something needs to be done to, because there's no way you can avoid it right now without going up on the grass. And I believe that is all of my comments. Thank you, President McGinnis.
Who wants it next? Councilman Nicholson.
I want to remind residents in District 2 that we've got our District 2 advisory meeting on Monday, April 24th at Golden Welsh Nursery at 7 p.m. We'll be giving an update from WRC just as far as the surveying that has been going on for a very large infrastructure replacement project that will affect Seminole Hills, Ottawa Hills, and Indian Village. So if you want more information about that and how the surveying's going and what to expect, what not to expect at this point in the project, please do come by and get that update. And then otherwise, please come out and help us on Saturday along Huron and Telegraph.
Councilwoman James?
Yes, I have 2. The Parks, Recreation, and Public Works Subcommittee meeting will take place this coming Monday at 12 noon in the Legislative Conference Room. And the District 4 Community Council meeting will take place on this coming Thursday, or next Thursday, April the 26th at New Mount Moriah International Church, located at 313 Walton Boulevard. It's right across from the Dollar Tree, so you can't miss it. And we hope to see everyone there. That's it.
Councilman Goodman?
Mine are really short. I encourage everyone to come out and help clean the park on this Thursday. I know that I'll see, hopefully, Miss Iola Miller, as she's already writing things down, because I'll be out there, obviously, helping to clean up my own park, and I'm very happy to be out there and hope to see all of you there. Even if you don't live in District 3, if you live close and you want to go clean a park, North Kiwanis Park is one of the largest parks in the city, is one of the most beautiful ones. There's a lot of green grass space. So if you're not there, you should probably come check it out more, because there's a lot of free open space. And it's on North Kiwanis Park, which is also known as Stanley Park. I usually refer to it as that. And it's on Stanley Street in District 3. And then also with that, the District 3 community meeting will be happening this Friday. At the old Governor's Mansion, so the Oakland County Pioneer Society, which is, Mike, you know the address off the top of your head?
405.
405 Cesar Chavez. It'll be from 5 to 6:30, and there will be some light refreshments. So please do come out. Again, if you are in District 3, it will be at the old Governor's Mansion on Cesar Chavez from 5 to 6:30. So I hope to see all of you there.
Councilwoman Rutherford, District 1.
Yes, life is a one-time offer. Use it well. I'm asking everyone to just practice the attitude of gratitude and to practice being an example for others to follow. This last couple of weeks, I have went and witnessed so many funerals. I've witnessed people commit, not necessarily witness them commit suicide, but I've had people who I've been associated with commit suicide, people who have said that they need mental health break. Even today, Judge Bernstein said he would have needed to take a mental health break because he needed to serve his community well. I say all that to say that sometimes it's absolutely okay to say no. It's absolutely okay to say I'm cool. It's absolutely okay to step back because life is short. And in 2.5 weeks, I will be 44 years old. Never thought I would make it to 44, but I'm almost there. And I just am learning in this season of my life that sometimes you just got to step back. And when you're normally ready to go on 10, you just got to stay on 2. Because 2 is healthier. 2 will keep me alive. 2 will keep me getting talked about because I'm always late to Pastor Barker Church. Always late, but I do get there. So I want y'all to just practice that. Number 2, I want to thank this administration and especially my President Pro Tem for understanding the importance of having things put in place for just these pods, these ordinance, because it's a real issue. I constantly get calls about that. I especially want to thank Tim who called me, Mayor Grandma, I apologize, who called me on the weekend because I kept getting calls about just needs that need to be met, potholes on South Side, and it takes, I got y'all. I got y'all. I don't want to put y'all on the text, but we're working on it. I think it's important that we give people their flowers. And also, we finally have a new code enforcement officer for District 1. I am so excited. He starts May the 2nd, so y'all can call him and ask him all the questions, Mr. Watkins. We have 2 other announcements really quickly. May the 14th, 2023, I will be having a Mother's Day brunch in District 1. You will see the sign up next week, first come, first serve. I have a District 1 meeting as long as there's not a funeral on April the 28th, which will be at the Alley Cat 3 to 5. And I also just want to say, if we could just be praying for prom season that is about to be upon us. There's always something that happens every year, and we need to be mindful and watchful of our children because I truly, truly believe, even though I'm a heathen, sometimes that prayer does change things. And so I thank you. God bless you, and have a good night.
President Pro Tem William A. Carrington, District 6.
Thank you, President McGinnis. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone that came out to the 6th District meeting last week to hear about the Ultra Community Development Corporation and the Mark Twain Project. Also, I'd like to thank GM Corporation for their work in some of the park this week. They actually brought the biggest team together for my district, so I definitely have to give kudos to them as they work through some of the community parks. Also, I'd like to thank everyone that came out to the public safety meeting this past week as well. So a lot of good things has come out of public safety, and I look forward to highlighting some of those initiatives in coming months. And that's a good night for me.
All right. Good evening. I'm Mike McGinnis, City Councilperson for District 7. In our district, the largest employer in the city of Pontiac, United Wholesale Mortgage, had 150 new employees start this last week. And last weekend, they had a hiring fair where they're trying to hire 500 positions. So the takeaway is that there are jobs to be had on South Boulevard in Pontiac. So if you know somebody that's looking, UWM is a viable opportunity. Also this past weekend on Auburn Avenue, there was an old pedestrian bridge that used to be across Auburn between Woodward and Paddock that has, pretty structurally beyond, been for a long time. It's when students would be crossing to go to WHRC school on the other side of the street there. That was taken down, so it definitely impacts the line of sight. I see that they're still clearing it away, but I'm actively monitoring to make sure that remediation project goes smoothly. This week I've been at Steed Park to help with cleanup there at an otherwise overlooked and underutilized park, but I know with some polishing and with some TLC, it can flourish once more for the nearby residents. I provided feedback to the administration and the parks team on some very, very low-lying improvements, low-hanging fruit that we can make sure that Steed Park can get going in the right direction. There have been a few issues on the east side for bulk pickup. I've submitted it, but I just want to flag it in the area of East Wilson, Midway, South Jesse, South Paddock, some of the bulk items, and I personally witnessed it. It wasn't like there were excessive numbers or that it was something crazy. It was legitimate bulk items that have been staying there more than 2 weeks, so I'm hopeful that the routes can be addressing that. We still have the right-of-way dumping at South Sanford and Elm Street. Got remnants of a couch and another object of furniture that hopefully can be addressed still. We've been submitting potholes, and so join us in the hunt for potholes. I've had a few residents say, well, when the weather's nice, how come the crews aren't out? Well, ladies and gentlemen, the crews are out, but we have 230 miles of streets in the city. So even when they're responding to ones they've been flagged for, and they're actively going to address the worst streets that haven't been hit, we all know they keep popping up anyway, and new ones keep emerging with these crazy weather cycles. But there's simply no humanly possible way, even though we have more crews and we have more in-house capacity now, not every pothole can be hit with the nice day. So it's still very important, though, that you get them that intel. Let them know about the worst offenders so that way your squeaky wheel gets the grease earlier as they continue to try and tackle that. There have been a few neighborhood associations and block clubs that have begun on the east side in our district talking about forming, and if that's true for your neighborhood, please reach out to me. I'm happy to use the resources of our district projects funding to provide some seed support. I'm happy to be there, happy to get you the goods, get you speakers, whatever folks that from the administration or community organizations that can speak to your neighborhood association or help you get off the ground because it's all for the good for our neighborhoods. We did have a very somber situation. I'm sure you heard if you were listening to the news a few weeks ago, drag racing and donuts by speed racers on South Boulevard and Opdyke. It's an issue where Auburn Hills, Bloomfield Township, and then the Sheriff's Department for Pontiac are increasing the patrolling and the monitoring there, and United Wholesale Mortgage is committed to help try and make sure that can be prevented. The young man who was driving the vehicle, it was a stolen vehicle from Ohio, something wild, but was doing donuts, and then the drag racer struck him, and he was ejected. He didn't have a seatbelt on. He has passed away, and so we send our condolences as a community. It was a needlessly preventable and tragic situation, and so I just want to make sure that residents in District 7 East Side know about that public safety concern, that the Sheriff's Department and their leadership is actively engaged on that, but a somber development that I hope can be a catalyst for better and safer things to come for those important corridors in our east side. There are at least two requests for proposals that are active or live right now, including if there's individuals that want to organize the arts crawl. Grant funding has been lined up, and I think that's still live. And also this City Council, working with the administration, put in money to do some repairs to the historic chapel at Oak Hill Cemetery, as well as a facility that had roof issues at Ottawa Park Cemetery. And that request for proposals is open for a few more days as well still. And on a final note, I'll end on a positive. In addition to the many accomplished student athletes and academic successes of students in our community, a great thing happened at Harrington Elementary today, where they had Tied Up Tuesdays, where they had the male students, the young men, all wearing white shirts and tie, having the male, in addition to Principal Mickens, who himself is a man, but Principal Mickens and other staff members, teachers, and even custodians helping make sure that the students have ties and that they're all there in their shirt and the tie, which I thought was amazing. So I just want to end on that note. Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Support.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Rutherford, seconded by Pro Tem Carrington, that we adjourn this evening's meeting. Hearing no discussion, roll call, Clerk Doyle.
James,
Yes?
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Yeah.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. We stand adjourned at 8 o'clock